43-47. The expression fall away is understood to mean waste away the Holy Bible, translated by the Catholic Biblical Association of America, shrink da or shrivel mo, and may suggest that the sex organs atrophied and that there was a loss of fertility and ability to conceive. The fact that the innocent wife was to be made pregnant by her husband would seem to indicate that future pregnancy would be denied the adulterous woman. New 5. 28. Moreover, the belly of the guilty wife would swell because of the curse, but not as a result of the blessing of pregnancy. This was by no means a trial by ordeal that sometimes required a virtual miracle to survive, such as those practiced in the Dark Ages. There was nothing in the water itself to cause the affliction. However, it was holy water and had in it holy ground or dust, and the writing of the cursings washed off in it. Therefore, it contained powerful symbolisms, and it was drunk before Jehovah and with a solemn oath to him. There was no uncertainty as to the outcome of matters. If the woman was guilty, Jehovah caused the drink to have miraculous potency to produce the deserved results. Adultery carried the death penalty, but in this instance there were not the required 2 witnesses. New 35. 30. The 19. 15. Also, usually in this case the identity of the guilty man, who would likewise be worthy of death, had not been revealed. Thinking ability. The Hebrew term mezim middle.ma is used to designate thinking ability, or the ability to give wise and thoughtful consideration to a matter, based on thorough knowledge. PR 5. 2. 8. 12. The schemes, devices, and foolish ideas of wicked men. PS 10. 2, 4. 21. 11. 37. 7. 139. 19, 20. PR 12. 2. 24. 8. Jur 11. 15. Or the purposeful ideas of Jehovah God or of his heart. O text to acute muritra longo, Thorn 1095, but I have chosen you out of the world, on this account the world hates you. Job 15. 19. Of course, the original language term for thinking abilities at Proverbs 14. 17 can embrace malicious thinking. Therefore, the text may also mean that a man who devises evil is hated, and some translations read accordingly. And a man of wicked devices is hated. J.P. O. Thistleheb. Da middle dot da. Gr. Tribo middle dot loss. Any of a variety of plants having prickly, irregular edged leaves, tough stems, and bearing round or cylindrical heads that produce soft and silky purple, yellow, or white flowers. Adam, and later his descendants, had to contend with troublesome thistles when cultivating the cursed ground. Ge 3. 17, 18. Since their seeds are scattered by the wind, thistles readily gain a foothold in neglected and desolated areas. Ho 10. 8. Jesus Christ referred to thistles in illustrating that people, just like plants, are recognized by their fruits. Mount 7. 16. In Palestine it is not uncommon to see a number of star thistles being driven along as a rolling mass by fall winds, a feature perhaps alluded to at Psalm 83. 13. And Isaiah 17. 13. Thomas from Aramaic, meaning twin. This apostle of Jesus Christ was called the twin, or Didymus. Mount 10. 3. Mr. 3. 18. Lu 6. 15. Joe 11. 16. FTN. He appears to have been somewhat impetuous in expressing his feelings or in voicing his doubts. However, upon having his doubts removed, Thomas did not hesitate to make acknowledgment of his belief. When Jesus proposed returning to Judea that he might awaken Lazarus from death, Thomas declared, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." Joe 11. 16. Since the Judeans had shortly before this time sought to stone Jesus. Joe 11. 7, 8. Thomas perhaps had in mind encouraging the other disciples to accompany Jesus even though this might result in their joining Lazarus or Jesus in death. Thomas showed a doubting attitude in response to Jesus' comment about going away to prepare a place for the apostles, saying, "Lord, we do not know where you are going. How do we know the way?" Job 14. 2-6. Similarly, After hearing about Jesus' resurrection, Thomas stated, "Unless I see in his hands the print of the nails, and stick my finger into the print of the nails, and stick my hand into his side, I will certainly not believe." 8 days later Thomas had the opportunity to do this when Jesus again appeared to the disciples. But whether Thomas actually did feel the wounds on this occasion is not stated. He was nevertheless convinced and exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." Christ then mildly reproved him, saying, "Happy are those who do not see and yet believe." Job 20. 24-29. Thorn. Any of numerous thorny or prickly plants. Over 70 varieties of thorny plants have been reported as growing in Israel, among them being the thorny burnet, the thorny caper, the acanthus, the boxthorn, and hawthorns. Although thorns proved to be troublesome to man, they were not altogether useless. Thorny plants were employed as hedges ho 2. 6 and for fuel EC7. 6, and they served as food for asses, camels, and goats. In more recent times, as may have been the case anciently, the boxthorn and the bramble in particular have been used for hedges, and the thorny burnet has been cut up as fuel for lime kilns. Issa 33. 12. The effects of the cursed ground, with its thorns and thistles, were keenly felt by the descendants of Adam ge 3. 17, 18, so that Noah's father Lamech spoke of the pain of our hands resulting from the ground which Jehovah has cursed. Ge 5. 29 After the flood, Jehovah blessed Noah and his sons, stating that his purpose for them was to fill the earth. Ge 9. 1 God's curse on the ground was apparently lifted. Ge 13. 10 However, Jehovah did not, as in perfect Adam's case, tell Noah and his family to subdue the earth. Compare Ge 1. 28 with Ge 8. 21. 9. 2. This suggests that imperfect man, without divine no textoi acute miritra longo, Thornbush 1096 at harvest time, when the thorns alongside the standing grain are dry, they readily catch fire, and an entire field can be consumed as the fire spreads from the thorns to the standing grain. Acts 22. 6. In mockery, Roman soldiers braided a crown of thorns and placed it on Jesus' head. Mr. 15. 17. Joe 19. 2 While the particular plant in question has been linked by many with Polaris spina Christi, a shrub growing to a height of 6 meters, 20 feet and having flexible branches with stiff thorns, no certain identification is possible. Figurative use. Frequently thorns are mentioned in a figurative, or an illustrative, sense. The Assyrians, although interwoven like thorns, were to be consumed as fully dry stubble. Now 1. 10 Thorns are used to denote people, even rulers, whose actions being bad, are in line for adverse judgment. 2 Kai 14. 9, 10. Issa 9. 18, 19. 10. 17-19 Wicked opposers of Jehovah's servant are depicted as being extinguished like a fire of thorn bushes. PS 118. 10, 12 Jesus Christ referred to thorns when illustrating the truth that individuals are known by their fruits. Mount 7. 16. Thorns designate persons and things that cause injury and are troublesome. New 33. 55. PR 22. 5. Es 28. 24 Paul's thorn in the flesh 2 Co 12. 7 May have been an affliction of his eye or another part of his body see Act 23. 1-5. 4. 15. 6. 11 Or perhaps the false apostles and other disturbers who challenged Paul's apostleship and work. C2 Co 11. 5, 6, 12-15. Go 1. 6-9. 5. 12. 6. 17. Jehovah, through his prophet Jeremiah, compared the hearts of the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to ground covered with thorns, that is, with untruth, injustice, and unrighteousness. J4. 1-4. Compare Ho 10. 12, 13. Fittingly, the replacement of thorns by trees represents the restoration of divine favor. Isla 55. 13. Sea bramble, briar, bush, lotus tree, weeds, thorn bush, sea bush. 3 taverns. A resting place attested to in ancient writings, situated on the Appian Way, the well-known highway that ran from Rome to Brundisium by way of Capua. The place perhaps got its name from 3 inns where travellers could stop to rest and refresh themselves. The site of 3 taverns is 49 kilometres 30 miles of Rome. The marketplace of Appius was about 15 kilometres 9.5 miles farther down the Appian Way. A few Roman ruins are all that remain today at the site. Having heard about Paul's coming, part of the delegation of the Christians from Rome waited at 3 taverns, while the rest travelled as far as the marketplace of Appius. Act 28. 13-15. Threshing. The process of releasing grain from each stalk and chaff. If gleaners had a small amount to thresh, or if the grain was of small size like cumin, or if the threshing was done secretly during dangerous times, a rod or flail was used to beat the grain by hand, either on the ground or in a winepress. JG 6. 11. Ru 2. 17. Isla 28. 27. The threshing floor, however, was the location of normal threshing operations. Usually situated on a higher elevation exposed to the wind, it consisted of a flat circular area, up to 15 meters, 50 feet in diameter, made either of stone or hard-packed earth. Threshing floors not privately owned were often clustered together near a village for communal use. The sheaves of barley or wheat, the principal grains of Palestine, were spread out on the floor today generally to a depth of 30 to 46 centimeters 12 to 18 inches. The treading by bulls or other animals, as they constantly circled the floor, gradually broke down the straw and freed the grain from the chaff. The animals were not muzzled while treading the grain. De 25. 4. Ho 10. 11. 1 Co 9. 9, 10. Threshing instruments pulled by animals speeded up the process and were more thorough than animal hooves alone. Isla 41. 15. Am1. 3 models used in more modern times are either broad flat heavy sledges with sharp teeth of stone or of iron on their underside or frames that pull heavy cylindrical otex to a acute meter longo. Throne 1097. Threshing also illustrates the crushing treatment men sometimes mete out to others. 2 Kai 13. 7. Or the separation of wheat from chaff may depict the separation of the righteous from the wicked by Jehovah's judgment. Mount 3. 12. In yet another sense, a long and bountiful threshing denotes prosperity and Jehovah's blessing. La 26. 5. Jo 2. 24. Throat. Neck. Throne. The Hebrew term kis middle dots basically means seat 1 sa 4. 13. Chetu Kai 4. 10. Or a seat of special importance such as a throne 1 Kai 22. 10. Its application is not limited to the seats of ruling monarchs 1 Kai 2. 19. Eni 3. 7. Es 3. 1. Es 26. 16. Nor does it strictly refer to a seat with a high back and armrests. Eli, for instance, while at the gate of Shiloh, fell backward from his kiss middle dots, evidently a backless seat. 1 Sa 4. 13. 18. The Greek term thronumbus generally refers to a high stool, with back, arms, and a footstool. Isaiah 14. 9 intimates that thrones were universally used by monarchs, the Bible specifically mentioning the thrones of Egypt Ge 41. 40. X 11. 5. 12. 29. Assyria John 3. 6. Babylon Issa 14. 4. 13. Da 5. 20. Persia is 1. 2. 5. 1, and Moab JJ 3. 17. 20. Archaeologists believe that they have found thrones used by rulers or their associates of all these powers, except Moab. An ivory panel, thought to depict a Canaanite throne and footstool, was found at Megiddo. Generally, These non-Israelite thrones have backs and armrests, being richly carved or ornamented. One extant Egyptian throne was made of wood overlaid with gold, while an Assyrian one was of wrought iron with ivory carvings. The throne seems customarily to have been placed on a dais, or raised platform, and in most cases a footstool was present. The only throne of a ruler of Israel described in detail is the one Solomon made. 1 Kai 10. 18-20. 2 Ch 9. 17-19. It appears to have been located in the porch of the throne, one of the buildings that stood on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. 1 Kai 7. 7. It was a great ivory throne overlaid with refined gold with a round canopy behind it and armrests. Although ivory could have been the basic material in this royal chair, the construction technique generally followed at the temple would seem to indicate that it was made of wood, overlaid with refined gold and richly ornamented with inlaid panels of ivory. To the observer, such a throne would appear to be made entirely of ivory and gold. After mentioning 6 steps leading to the throne, the record continues. 2 lions were standing beside the armrests. And there were 12 lions standing there upon the 6 steps, on this side and on that side. 2 Ch 9. 17-19. The symbolism of the lion denoting ruling authority is appropriate. GE 49. 9, 10. Re 5. 5. The 12 lions appear to have corresponded to the 12 tribes of Israel, possibly symbolizing their subjection to and support of the ruler on this throne. Attached in some way to the throne was a footstool of gold. By its description, this ivory and gold throne, in its lofty, canopied position with the majestic lions in front, transcends any throne of that time period, whether discovered by archaeologists, depicted on the monuments, or described in the inscriptions. As the chronicler truthfully observed, no other kingdom had any made just like it. 2 Ch 9. 19. Figurative usage. Throne figuratively signifies a seat of ruling authority. 1 Kai 2. 12. 16. 11. Or the kingly authority and sovereignty itself. GE 41. 40. 1 Ch 17. 14. PS 89. 44. Iranian government or royal administration. 2 Sa 14. 9. Sovereign control over a territory. 2 Sa 3. 10. And a position of honor. 1 Sa 2. 7, 8. 2 Kai 25. 28. What is Jehovah's throne? Jehovah, whom even the heaven of the heavens cannot contain, O textually acute miritra longo. Thumb 1098. Of the covenant when Israel would be restored from Babylon, this would not mean that Jehovah no longer purposed to be enthroned at his center of worship. As he said, in that time they will call Jerusalem the throne of Jehovah. J 3. 16, 17. Ezekiel's restoration prophecies are in agreement, for in his vision of Jehovah's temple in which no Ark of the Covenant was seen, he was told, Son of man, this temple is the place of my throne. Es 43. 7. Jehovah covenanted that the throne of David's seed should itself become one lasting to time indefinite. 1 Ch 17. 11-14. In announcing the fulfillment of this promise, the angel Gabriel said to Mary, Jehovah God will give Jesus the throne of David his father, and he will rule as king over the house of Jacob forever, and there will be no end of his kingdom. Luke 1. 32, 33. Not only would there be an inheritance of an earthly dominion on Jesus' part, but he would share Jehovah's throne, which is universal. Re 3. 21. Issa 66. 1. In turn, Jesus promised to share his throne of kingly authority with all those who, like his faithful apostles, were in the new covenant with his Father and who would conquer the world as Jesus had done. Thus, it would be granted to them to sit on thrones along with Jesus. Mount 19. 28. Luke 22. 20, 28-30. Re 3. 21. In harmony with Jehovah's prophecy through Zechariah that the man named Sprout, the builder of the future temple for Jehovah, must become a priest upon his throne, Paul records concerning Jesus. We have such a high priest as Melchizedek, a king priest, and he is sat down at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens. Zech 6. 11-13. Heb 8. 1. In addition to Christ Jesus, John saw the whole spiritual house or sanctuary of God, the faithful Christian congregation, enthroned as king-priests to rule for 1,000 years. Re 20. 4, 6. 1 Pe 2. 5. As foretold in Psalm 45. 6, and applied by Paul in Hebrews 1. 8. Jesus' throne, his office or authority as sovereign, has its source in Jehovah. God is your throne forever. On the other hand, the devil, too, provides basis or authority for his organizations to rule, as emphasized in Revelation 13. 1, 2, with respect to the wild beast that came out of the sea. The dragon gave to the beast its power and its throne and great authority. When Satan offered similar power and authority to Jesus Christ, his price was stated. If you do an act of worship before me, it will all be yours. 4. 5-7. Correspondingly, the grant of a throne or authority to the wild beast must have been on the condition of its serving Satan. In discussing Jesus' position as God's master worker, Paul mentions that through Christ thrones were created. The term appears to refer to positions of official authority, both visible and invisible, within God's administrative arrangement. Col 1. 16. Thumb. The finger on the human hand that can be moved against each of the other fingers. Humans can grasp things and perform many delicate operations that would be impossible if they did not have opposable thumbs. Anciently, a captive was sometimes incapacitated for military service by having his thumbs and big toes cut off. JG 1. 6, 7. The Hebrew word bohen is used to designate both the thumb and the big toe. The appendage that bohen has reference to in any given text is indicated by the accompanying expressions of the hand and of the foot. Whenever the thumb is mentioned in the scriptures, the big toe is referred to in the same text. X 29. 20. But 14. 14, 17, 25, 28. During the installation of Aaron and his sons as priests, the ram was killed, and Moses put some of its blood on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. Then he did the same to each of Aaron's sons. Late. 23, 24. The blood on the right thumb figuratively represented that they should carry out their priestly duties with the best of their textoi acute miritra longo, Tiberius 1099 Angel. Joe 12. 28, 29. Compare 6. 1. 14. 2. 19. 6. The sound of thunder often being an advance indication of an approaching storm, thunders can designate divine warnings, as at Revelation 8. 5. 10. 3, 4. 16. 18. To the Jews at the foot of Mount Sinai, the thunder that they heard was a manifestation of God's presence. X 19. 16. Compare 4. 5. 11. 19. Either this event or God's leading Israel by means of a pillar and cloud at place of thunder may be alluded to by the psalmist's words. I Jehovah began to answer you in the concealed place of thunder. PS 81. 7. Thunder, sons of. Boanerges. Thitara thy tra. The city rebuilt early in the 3rd century BCE by the former general of Alexander the Great, Seleucus Nicator. It was situated about 60 kilometers 40 mainland from the Aegean Sea along a tributary of the Gedi's ancient Hermus River in western Asia Minor. Thyatira's Christian congregation received a message written by the hand of the Apostle John at the dictation of the Lord Jesus Christ. Re 1. 11. Thyatira today is called Akissa and is located about 250 kilometers 155 mi SSW of Istanbul and about 375 kilometers 233 mi of Athens. Picture, Volume 2, p. 946. This city was never a great metropolis or a center of special political significance or importance. But it was a wealthy industrial center, noted for its numerous crafts, including weaving, dyeing, brassworking, tanning, and pottery making. Its dye business is frequently mentioned in inscriptions. the makers of Thyatira used madder root as a source for their celebrated scarlet or purple color, known in later times as turkey red. Lydia, converted to Christianity during Paul's first visit to Philippi in Macedonia, was a seller of purple, of the city of Thyatira. She may have been an overseas representative of Thyatiran manufacturers, a businesswoman of some means who owned a house spacious enough to entertain Paul and his companions during their stay in Philippi. Acts 16. 12-15. When and by whom Christianity was first introduced to the Thyatirans is not known. There is no record that Paul or other evangelists ever visited the city or that Lydia returned there. Possibly the message reached there during the 2 years c. 53-55 CE that Paul was active in Ephesus, about 115 kilometers 70 miles of Thyatira, for during that time all those inhabiting the district of Asia heard the word of the Lord, both Jews and Greeks. Act 19. 10. What is known is that some 40 years later there was a rather vigorous congregation of Christians in Thyatira. Re 1. 10, 11. Christ's message to Thyatira congregation. This congregation, the fourth of the 7 to receive its message, was commended for the love, faith, and endurance it had shown. Its ministry was also approved. Its deeds of late are more than those formerly. But, though the congregation had these commendable qualities, a very bad condition had also been allowed to develop and remain within this congregation. In this regard the Lord's condemnation declared. You tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, and she teaches and misleads my slaves to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed to idols. This woman was probably given the name Jezebel because her wicked conduct resembled that of Ahab's wife, and because of her callous refusal to repent. It seems, however, that only a minority of the Thyatira congregation approved this Jezebel influence, since the message went on to speak to the rest of you who are in Thyatira, all those who do not have this teaching, the very ones who did not get to know the deep things of Satan. Re 2. 18-29. Tiberias T middle.B rear middle.as. 1. A city founded by Herod Antipas about 18 CE and named after Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Roman Empire at the time. It is still called Tiberias Devria and is situated about 25 kilometers 15 miles of Nazareth, on a comparatively narrow strip along the western shore of the Co Textoi Acute Murica Longo. About 1100 married Julia, the emperor's widowed daughter. Augustus adopted him in 4 CE. Augustus chose Tiberius as his successor only after others whom he preferred above Tiberius had all died. On August the 17th, 14 CE Gregorian calendar, Augustus died. On September the 15th, Tiberius allowed the Senate to name him emperor. John started baptizing in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar. If the years were counted from the death of Augustus, the 15th year ran from August the 28th CE to August the 29th CE. If counted from when he was formally proclaimed emperor, the year would run from September the 28th CE to September the 29th CE. Lu 3. 1-3. Tiberius lived until March 37 CE, and hence was emperor for the entire period of Jesus' ministry. It was therefore most likely his image that was on the tax coin brought to Jesus when he said, "Pay back Caesar's things to Caesar." Mr. 12. 14-17. Mount 22. 17-21. Lu 20. 22-25. Tiberius extended the law of lesa magistris injured majesty to include, in addition to seditious acts, merely libelous words against the emperor, and presumably on the strength of this law the Jews pressured Pontius Pilate to have Jesus killed. Joe 19. 12-16. Tiberius later called Pilate to Rome, because of Samaritan complaints against his administration, but Tiberius died and Caligula succeeded him before Pilate arrived. As an emperor, Tiberius had both virtues and vices. He restrained spending on luxuries and so had funds to use generously to build up the empire's prosperity as well as reserves to assist recovery from disasters and bad times. Tiberius viewed himself as a man not a god, declined many honorary titles, and generally directed emperor worship to Augustus Octavian rather than to himself. His vices exceeded his virtues, however. He was extremely suspicious and hypocritical in his dealings with others, and his reign abounded with ordered killings, many of his former friends being numbered among the victims. He consulted astrologers. At his villa on Capri, where he spent the last 10 years of his life, he indulged his perverted lusts in a most debased manner with men kept for unnatural purposes. Tiberius was despised not only by such individuals as his schoolteacher Theodorus the Gadaran and his stepfather Augustus, but also by his subjects in general. After his death, the Senate refused to deify him. For these reasons and others too, Bible scholars see in Tiberius a fulfillment of prophecy that says one who is to be despised would arise as the king of the north. 11. 15, 21. Tib hath slaughter. A citizen of Palestine from which David took a great quantity of copper after striking down Hadadezer, king of Zobah, at Hamath, about 230 kilometers 140 mi of Dan. 1 ch 18. 3, 8 in the parallel description of David's campaign at 2 Samuel 8. 8, Dibath is apparently called Beta. See Beta. Some suggest that Dibath may have been named for Nahor's son Teba. GE 22. 24 In harmony with its being part of the Aramean kingdom of Zobah, the location of Dibath was probably in the valley lying between the Lebanon and Lebanon mountains. Traces of ancient copperworks have been found in Lebanon, in harmony with the biblical account. Tibni, a contender for the kingship of the 10-tribe kingdom of Israel following the 7-day rule of Israel's 5th king Zimri in about 951 BCE. The populace was divided over whether Tibni or Omri should now be king. 4 years later, during which time civil war presumably raged, the issue was finally settled. Tibni lost to Omri's supporters and met death. He was a son of Genath. 1 Chi 16. 15, 21-23. Title Tidal. The king of Goiim and an ally of Elamite king Chedorlaomer, when they and 2 other monarchs subjugated 5 kings near the Dead Sea. Following 12 years of domination, the 5 defeated kings staged a rebellion. Title, Chedorlaomer, and the others came to put it down, and in doing so took Otex to acute Muritra Longo, Tiglath-Pileser 31101 national groups and weaken or eliminate any unity of action in attempts to throw off the Assyrian yoke. This king first appears in the Bible account as Pul. 2 Chi 15. 19 1 Chronicles 5. 26 also states that God stirred up the spirit of Pul the king of Assyria, even the spirit of Tilgath-Pilneser the king of Assyria, so that he took into exile peoples of certain tribes of Israel. The ancient secular records apply both names to the same individual, the name Pul appearing in what is known as the Babylonian king list A, while the synchronistic chronicle lists Tychaldipil Sharatigloth-Pileser. Ancient Near Eastern Texts, edited by J. Pritchard, 1974, pages 272, 273. It is also of note that, in the Hebrew, the above-quoted scripture uses the verb took in the singular rather than in the plural. It is commonly suggested that Pul was the monarch's personal name and that he assumed the name Tiglath-Pileser, the name of an earlier and famous Assyrian king, upon ascending the throne. It appears that during the early part of his reign, Tiglath-Pileser III was occupied in hammering out stronger borders for the empire in the S.E., and the menacing shadow of Assyria, however, soon loomed large over the lands of Syria and Palestine to the W. The Assyrian inscriptions prominently mention Azri-Adara Judah in connection with the campaign by Tiglath-Pileser III in Syria. Ancient Near Eastern Texts, pages 282, 283. This would seem to be a reference to King Azariah of Judah, more commonly known as Uzziah 829-778 BCE, but the matter is a debated one, because some hold that the small kingdom of Samael in Syria was on occasion also called Judah. The likelihood of such a pagan king having a name including the name of Jah, the abbreviated form of Jehovah, and living at the same time as the Judean king of the same name seems slight. However, the Bible does not mention Tiglath-Pileser III in connection with Azariah, and the Assyrian records are considerably mutilated. During the reign of King Menahem of Israel c. 790-781 BCE, Tiglath-Pileser III Pul advanced into Palestine, and Menahem sought the Assyrians' favor by paying him tribute to the amount of 1,000 talents of silver, $6,606.000 in current values. Temporarily appeased, Tiglath-Pileser withdrew his forces. 2 Chi 15. 19, 20. The Assyrian documents refer to Menahem, Menahem, along with Rezin of Damascus and Hiram of Tyre, as tributary to Tiglath-Pileser. Subsequently, In the time of King Ahaz of Judah 761-746 BCE, King Pekah of Israel formed a confederation with King Rezin of Damascus and attacked Judah. 2 Kings 16. 5, 6. Issa 7. 1, 2. Though assured by the prophet Isaiah that within a short time the two conspiring kingdoms would be wiped off the scene, King Ahaz chose to send a bribe to Tiglath-Pileser to come to his rescue. 2 Kings 16. 7, 8. Issa 7. 7-16. 8. 9-13. An Assyrian inscription describes the tribute paid by Ahaz, or Ahaz of Judah, and other kings of that area as follows: gold, silver, tin, iron, antimony, linen garments with multicolored trimmings, garments of their native industries being made of dark purple wool. All kinds of costly objects, be they products of the sea or of the continent, the choice products of their regions, the treasures of their kings, horses, mules trained for the yoke. Ancient Near Eastern texts, p. 282. The aggressive Assyrian responded to Ahaz's urging by invading Israel, capturing several northern cities, and overrunning the regions of Gilead, Galilee, and Naphtali, carrying many off into exile. 2 Kings 15. 29. 1 Ch 5. 6, 26. Damascus was attacked and fell to the Assyrian forces, and its king Rezin was slain. Here at Damascus, Tiglath-Pileser III received the visit of King Ahaz of Judah, coming either to express gratitude or submission to Assyria. 2 Kings 16. 9-12. Isaiah had been inspired o text to acute miritra longo, Tikva 1102. In ancient Assyrian records Tiglath-Pileser III is assigned a reign of 18 years. Biblical references, however, seem to indicate that his kingship was of longer duration, inasmuch as references to him appear from the time of Menahem down to that of Hoshea. But the Hebrew scriptures do not set forth all the details needed for one to state positively that the Assyrian records are in error in this case. This is so for several reasons. There is some uncertainty regarding the manner in which the reigns of the Israelite kings are to be fitted into a chronological framework. It is also worth noting that the period prior to the time generally assigned for the start of Tiglath-Pileser's reign is one of relative obscurity as far as the ancient records are concerned, and is considered to have been a time of great decline for the Assyrians. Thus the French scholar, George Ezra, in his book Ancient Iraq, states that for 36 years, Assyria was practically paralyzed. As for Ashurnirari v. considered to have been the predecessor of Tiglath-Pileser III, the same author observes, he hardly dared leave his palace and was probably killed in a revolution which broke out in Kalu and put upon the throne his younger brother. Tiglath-Pileser III. 1964, p. 251. In view of this, it seems entirely possible that Tiglath-Pileser may have exercised the power of kingship for a longer period of time than commonly credited to him, even perhaps as a co-regent. At 2 Chronicles 28. 16. Ahaz is spoken of as sending to the kings of Assyria for them to help him. While the plural kings, occurring in the Hebrew Masoretic text, appears in the singular king in the Septuagint and in other ancient manuscripts, there are modern translations that favor the Hebrew plural. J.P. N.W. Some scholars view the plural here as merely indicating the sum of majesty and greatness ascribed to the one monarch Tiglath-Pileser III as the King of Kings. Yet attention is also called to the boastful claim of the Assyrian monarch recorded at Isaiah 10. 8. Are not my princes at the same time kings? It is thus possible that the reference to Pul the king of Assyria 2 Kings 15. 19 may also be applied in the sense of his being the ruler of an Assyrian province prior to becoming head of the entire empire. Upon his death Tiglath-Pileser III was succeeded by Shalmaneser V. More details might be known concerning this king were it not for the fact that a still later king, Esarhaddon, caused Tiglath-Pileser's inscriptions to be mutilated, a rare affront elsewhere unknown in Assyrian history. Tikva Hope. 1. Father-in-law of Huldah the prophetess. Son of Haraz. 2 Kings 22. 14. The name is spelled Tokath according to the Masoretic text at 2 Chronicles 34. 22. 2. Father of a certain Josiah who lived in the time of Ezra. Ez 10. 10, 11, 15. See Josiah. Tilgath-Pilneser. See Tiglath-Pileser III. Tilon, the son of Shimon in the tribe of Judah. 1ch4. 20. Timaeus T middle dot Measonid, father of Bartimaeus the blind beggar healed by Jesus. Mr. 10. 46. Time S. See acceptable time. Appointed times of the nations. Calendar. Time indefinite. The Hebrew word olam carries the thought of indefinite or uncertain time. Lexicographer Gesenius defines it as meaning hidden time, that is obscure and long, of which the beginning or end is uncertain or indefinite. A Hebrew and English lexicon of the Old Testament, translated by E. Robinson, 1836, p. 746. Accordingly, expressions such as time indefinite ps 25. 6. Indefinitely lasting had 3. 6. Evol G6. 4. A long time ago, of long ago Jos 24. 2. PR 22. 28. 23. 10. And long-lasting EC 12. 5. Appropriately convey the thought of the original language term. The word lam is at times associated with that which is everlasting. 1 Kai 2. 45. FTN the prophet Isaiah wrote, Jehovah, the creator of the extremities of the earth, is a god o textoi acute miritra longo, time of the amdalevno 3 together, and may be rendered age during, and forever age abiding and beyond ro, and time indefinite, even forever NW. Concerning the earth, the psalmist declared, it will not be made to tot at a time indefinite, or forever. PS 104. 5. The Hebrew term enizach can also denote everlastingness. Among the ways it may be rendered are forever job 4. 20. 14. 20, perpetually isla 57. 16, and always PS 9. 18. Sometimes any-zach and o-lam occur in parallel PS 49. 8, 9, or the terms any-zach and ad appear together. Am 1. 11. All three words are found at Psalm 9. 5, 6. You have rebuked nations. Their name you have wiped out to time indefinite o-lam, even forever wa-ed. O you enemy, your desolations have come to their perpetual o-enzach finish. In the Christian Greek scriptures, the word ion may denote a time period of indefinite or indeterminate length, a period of remote, but not endless, time. For example, at Luke 1. 70 and Acts 3. 21 on can be rendered of old time, in ancient times. Rs, NW, at often, however, the context suggests that on is to be understood to refer to a time period of undefined length, because of such period being endless in duration. Lu 1. 55. Jo 6. 50, 51. 12. 34. 1 Jo 2. 17. Similarly, the adjective o and os drawn from on can, as is evident from the context, signify both long-lasting row 16. 25. 2 T1. 9. T1. 2 and everlasting. Mount 18. 8. 19. 16. 29. Another Greek adjective, os, specifically means eternal or everlasting. Row 1. 20. Jude 6, NW, RS, at. For a further consideration of on, see age. Systems of things. Time of the end. An expression found 6 times in the book of Daniel. It refers to a time period marking the conclusion of a system of things and culminating in its destruction. The prophet Daniel was given a preview of events to occur in the distant future. Thereafter he was told, and as for you, O Daniel, make secret the words and seal up the book, until the time of the end. Many will rove about, and the true knowledge will become abundant. Dar 12. 4. Concerning this text, commentator Thomas Scott, in the first half of the 19th century, observed, the angel, by way of conclusion, intimated to Daniel that this prophecy would remain obscure, and as a sealed book, of which little would be understood, till the time of the end. The fact has evidenced this to be the case. Immense difficulties have always been